I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I think we're going to have a very interesting session here with Dónal. I'd like to thank Dónal for giving us his time. I was looking through, just preparing a bit of this, looking through the internet. He's a very busy man. Don't know how he gets time to do anything. So I'd also like to thank the Falls Community Council for making this session available for us. It's a wonderful idea, and the course is brilliant, and I want to do the course. If they would organise it times with some of us aren't working, we'd all be very grateful as well. Tree has done a lot of work here, putting the whole thing together. These are thanks, and Peter, who's sitting about there somewhere, who's standing at the back there. I'd like to thank all them. So that's basically the introduction. Now, as Tree has already said, the plan is, insofar as there is a plan, this is it, and we can deviate and go all sorts of directions according to the will of everyone here and the agreement of Dónal. Basically, I'm going to take Dónal sort of chronologically through some of the activities that he's been involved in, and ask him a few of the sort of questions that you would ask. More general sort of questions about his involvement and his involvement in the music. I know there's people here then who may have specific questions either of a technical nature or just a general nature or whatever. And feel free to come in and ask when the notion moves you. Okay? I'd make 2 requests. If we try and keep it chronologically, so if you're talking, want to ask about the Bothy Band, we'll do the Bothy Band bit, okay, or whatever, and try and keep the questions reasonably brief. So I'm used to political meetings where people make 15-minute speeches in the guise of a question, so we could try and knock it up to that for you, okay? Okay, so that's the plan, and we'll see how it goes.
I'm delighted Fergus has a plan.
What's that?
I'm delighted you have a plan because I never did one of these before.
Yeah, I know. My plans, I always believe the plans are there to be sort of deviated from.
Changed, yeah, once you have one.
People believe in deviation. Anyway, thank you. Right. Okay. Now, another part of the plan was Tree. This is the back here, and we've sort of organised this, but it's very much Tree will maybe interrupt me. What we're going to try and do is illustrate some of Dónal's career with some of with bits of music here and there. Okay, so I have some here in the head, and maybe there's some that I haven't got in my head, and Tree will sort of say I have a bit here that might illustrate that point. Okay, sounds really well organised, and I can assure you it is. Okay, so if Tree needs to interrupt, he'll interrupt, or anyone else needs to interrupt. That's the plan. Okay.
Right.
Now we're going to set the scene. It's always good to set the scene. After you have a plan, it's good to set the scene. And what I want to try and do is, for all you young ones here who don't remember what it was like, BD, that's before Dónal. Okay. We're just going to do a couple of minutes just thinking back on that. For those of us who were growing up, or those whom I believe were growing up in the 60s, early 60s here, the Irish music scene consisted of, I suppose, the record. Those of us who had records, we didn't have records, but anybody who had records from their parents' generation, that have been the likes of John McCormick, singing Macushla and all that sort of stuff. That was Irish music. Slightly more updated, you would have had Brendan O'Dowda doing the works of Percy French, and haven't heard it from the future from the town of Ballyknockin. It's all great and not knocking it at all. But that was sort of where Irish music was. It had Ruby Murray singing songs of all that sort of stuff. That was early 60s Irish music. For those of us, sorry?
Can we hear a bit of it?
Yes, let's hear a bit of it. Oh my God, how could we miss it?
You hear that? It's actually that the little final, which is like the music on 2 sides. Ooh.
Perfect.
Yeah, right.
Well, I listened to Radio Luxembourg all the time at that time.
All right. There was Radio Luxembourg Under the Blankets with your
That was it, yeah.
with your little crackly transistor. Anyway, I think just if we're going to understand how things have changed, the reason we're doing this, to sort of understand the importance of what's been happening in the road that Dónal's had it, just to think of how things have actually changed. So that was what a lot of people were listening to. For those of us who may have been interested in more traditional music, there was a brilliant program on RTE called the Waltons Programme, and was organised by Waltons Music Shop, which is still there in Dublin, North Frederick Street, is it? And they had a programme at, I think it was 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoons. They had what were called sponsored programmes, 15 minutes of the Waltons. And on the Waltons you heard what was the closest we could get to.
This is the Walton Programme, your weekly reminder of the grace and beauty that lie in our heritage of Irish song, the songs our fathers loved. The dawning of the day played by the Bothy Band, and now at the beginning of the festive season, Mary McGonagall looks back on the good old days.
I remember well the years gone by and the changes they have brought. I live right here in the Emerald Isles.
Yes, perfect.
But just don't knock this. This was great. And I'm telling you, this isn't so long ago. I mean, I can remember being at university in Dublin when you were on the go. And that still listening avidly to the Waltons Programme, because that was where you got some level of traditional sort of music. So it's funny, but it was good, and God bless them all, they did a great job. Howsoever, well, that was the sort of national scene. That's what we're listening to on RTE. We're not going to. In Belfast, as always, we were streets ahead. Streets ahead. We had a group of musicians here who had brought traditional music out of the parlour onto a world stage, right? And had played all over the world, Carnegie Hall, Moscow, wherever, and are still playing. And that was the McPeake Family, right? And I think it's interesting, just if we tend to sneer, but people tend to be a bit sneery about the McPeakes, right? I think they're brilliant. But there tends to be a bit of, Belfast begrudgery. I think the McPeakes, even if you look at what they were doing now, in the light of what's happened, in terms of the mixing of music and pipes and vocals, Planxty did it 20 years later. But in a way, the McPeakes were doing that in the 50s, in the 40s, in the 50s, and in the 60s. In the 60s, they started to record, and as I said, it became big. And I think we'll have a McPeakes here, just to have a wee listen to them. Okay, then I was McPeakes, and the McPeakes are still going, and this is where we're all got our plugs in. Anybody wants to hear them can hear them down the John Hewitt pub there. We have a folk club there every end of the month, and we're singing there on Sunday, as good as ever. So the McPeakes are still on the go, and they're still contributing a hell of a lot to music in this city. I think we'll talk about that a wee bit later on, because I want to get at Dónal as one of the the establishment of Irish music almost, why we're neglected up here. But that's the background against which, that was the early 60s here musically in Ireland. And then what happened, what exploded on the scenes was the Clancy Brothers. I think the Clancy Brothers came in and suddenly something new happened, right? Do you have the Clancy Brothers? This is the last of these little illustrations, by the way. Just to set, this is the setting the scene.
Tim Finnegan lived in Walking Street, a gentle Irishman, mighty odd. He'd a beautiful brogue, so rich and sweet, at the rise in the world he carried a hot. You see, the sort of a timpling way, with a love for the liquor, poor Tim was born. To help him on with his work each day, he'd a drop of the crater every morn. Wipe up and down, now dance to your partner, wipe and blow your brother's skate. Wasn't it the truth I told you lots of fun?
So that was it. That was it. And there's a couple of wee other things which we should mention, obviously. That was the start of things starting to change. One of the major influences then that came in at that time was Sean O'Riordan. Maybe we'll talk about him later on as well. He started a group called Coulter, who later became the Chieftains. We all know the Chieftains, but you might as well just to keep with the continuity. I can remember listening to the first Chieftains record when Vincent Boyle, who happened to be Sean Boyle, the collector, lived next door to us by total coincidence, and he came in with the first Chieftains record and said, put it in the record player, said, listen to this. And we did. And it was something totally new. I mean, this may sound a bit funny, but it was absolutely... a lot of this is all old hat to people listening to it now, but I think it is important to emphasise that the Clancys were just like an earthquake coming. I mean, I can remember people living in Andersonstown and people coming around with Clancy Brothers records. Have you heard this? It was actually something amazing that people come, and the same with the Chieftains. Suddenly, people were, it was earth-shattering. If I don't want to overemphasise it, but it certainly was. And then the whole O'Riordan went into the Misha era thing, which I think we'll probably skip and get on with. So that was the background, and that was about that time Dónal Lunny came on the scene. Okay? So suppose the first question is, Dónal, we listened to all this, you were listening to Radio Luxembourg, what sort of influence did that sort of beauty have in you, or didn't have any?
It eventually arrived for me because I started playing an instrument with a band in school. I started playing drums with a rock band in school, and we were doing kind of stuff out of the top 20, you know.
What colour are bands, matter of interest?
Our daughters as the Cyclones.
The Cyclones.
Yeah, this is prehistory.
Prehistory. Okay.
Yeah, we were in secondary school, and I got interested in the guitar, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. And when I did, the band, we broke up at the end of that year, and the only sort of opportunity I had to play was at traditional sessions. I played with a few groups in Dublin when I came to college first, and there were groups with floating populations, like people go in and out of them. But the first band had Mick Maloney, who now lives in America. We played together for quite a while, and that sort of led me into traditional music. The next thing was sessions down in Prosperous near Newbridge, where we used to go on Wednesdays and Saturday nights and play thousands of tunes. And there was nobody else playing guitar there, so it was open field for me. I was just able to lash away.
So you were living in Newbridge? You're from Newbridge, or you're from Tullamore?
Well, born in Tullamore, moved to Newbridge when I was 5. But,
Right, moved into Newbridge.
But the Clancys had arrived at this stage, and I think they just arrived around that time. And it was just as you said, it was a momentous thing, and there were ballad groups all over the country. And the first thing they got were the Bonnian Sweaters, and then on from there, and sang the whole sort of the Clancy Brothers repertoire, you know. But it was quite acceptable at the time.
Right, that's that was it. I mean, the whole point of that's what was actually called, when you talk about the ballad, it was called the ballad boom. And in Dublin they talked about the ballad boom. It wasn't folk music, traditional music, it was the ballad boom.
That's right.
The old ceiling and all this sort of stuff. So then you were with Mick Maloney and the Emmet folk.
That's right. Yeah.
And then you joined up with the two Byrne brothers.
That's right.
I don't know whether any of you remember this. We hear about all these boy bands, but Dónal was in the first boy band
That's right, yeah.
in Ireland, the Emmet Spiceland. I think I remember I was just starting university, and there was a lunchtime gig. This may have been There was a lunchtime gig where the Emmet folk and the Spiceland folk were to play.
Wow.
And only the half of each group turned up. So you sat and just played the whole gig. And it was one of those, I always think that's where the Emmet Spiceland came from. But anyway, it's as good a story as any.
That'll do.
So, we'll have an Emmet Spiceland. This is Dónal in his first, one of your early recordings from the Emmet Spiceland. The Emmet Spiceland were really big again.
Winter it is past and the summer's gone at last, and the birds they are singing in the trees.
Can you hear yourself?
Briefly back.
Their little hearts are glad, but mine is very sad.
Very good. Now you Emmet
Yeah.
So, the big thing that the Emmet Spiceland did, or the biggest record they did, I suppose, was Mary from Dunlow, which, in a way, I think it launched the Mary from Dunlow Festival, which is still running,
That's right, yeah.
which probably launched Daniel O'Donnell.
Maybe.
Do you realise the trust?
Not the answer, bro, again.
And as a result of this, you were made a free man of Dunlow.
That's right.
Could you tell us how being a free man of Dunlow has changed your life?
But I can't stay away from the place. And it was lovely at the time. It was great.
It was. I mean, this is all, for those of you who don't remember, this is all actually true. Donald, how many other free men of Dunlow are there? Are there only three, I guess? I don't know. So there you are. Anyway, the influence of the Emmet Spiceland, again, we can look back, and I think we were a great group. But that whole, the Emmet Spiceland, the Johnsons, was very much in an international sort of set. And I would have put them in the Peter, Paul and Mary, and
Absolutely.
Simon and Garfunkel, Beatles.
Yeah, there wasn't much reference. I mean, I don't know if there was actually a sort of a, what would you say, an etiquette of, or the character of Irish music or traditional music wasn't that obvious at the time, and hadn't been really defined in any way. So, consequently, the harmonies that we sang in Emmet Spiceland was anything goes, you know. So you had all those lovely sevenths and minors and whatever, you know. So.
Who did the arrangements? Who did the harmony? Who did
In
the,
between us, I did a fair bit of it. All right,
Right.
but you know, we did it between us. The guys were, Brian and Mick were very good eaters, you know.
Yeah.
So we used to just hammer them out.
Well, I can remember actually at that time the Irish influence coming in. I can remember, this is another story which you wouldn't remember, hitchhiking from Sheffield to London in the 60s. And you and Brian Byrne landed at the same roundabout and asked us which direction we were going. And we all got in a van and headed from from Leicester to London. And you played what was then going to be your new thing, the Carlin's Concerto. We heard Carlin's Concerto for the first time in the back of a van going from, there you are, now come on, write that down, festivals, please. So,
It's gas.
that went over 3 or 4 years. How long did the Emmet Spiceland last?
Hardly 3 years. Yeah.
Right.
About 69, I think. Yeah.
69, and then what happened?
Well, I had left the College of Art and I was making jewellery in a workshop in Dublin for 2 years. And during that time I met up with a guy called Larry Holder from We4, who were a sort of cabaret band. They had double bass, wore suits, and I got press ganged into that. We were supposed to be writing some songs together, but suddenly Dennis Mowatt left, so I was drafted in, and his suit was altered to fit me.
Right.
And it wasn't actually my cup of tea
Wasn't it?
generally, but still I learned a lot while I was with them. And ironically, the singer of the band, her name was Suzanne Murphy, and I used to be always at her to kind of, she had a beautiful vibrato in her voice, you know, but it didn't really suit the music, so I'd be begging her to sing just straight notes. She's the prima donna with the Welsh National Opera now, and hasn't been for the last 15 years or something, you know.
And is this because of your influence or despite your influence?
She found her feet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so post Emmet Spiceland, we're getting more into the Irish influence, or the influence of more traditional stuff. According to the internet, which never tells lies, it was around this time you came across Andy Irvine
That's right.
and discovered the Bora, or the Bouzouki,
True.
and started to play. So can you tell us what happened there? What was the...
Well, it was I remember well being in his flat the one afternoon, and he had a whole load of instruments that he got around Eastern Europe and in Greece and wherever, you know. He had bagpipes, kaval, stuff from Bulgaria, all this from his travels over there, and he had Bouzouki in there as well. So I picked it up and I was kind of just fiddling about on it, but I liked the sound of it very much, you know. So I was fiddling about on it for about 2 hours, and Andy said, take it home with you, you know. And he kind of gave it to me on the spot, you know, which was brilliant. He said, doesn't suit me. He played a lot of mandolin and mandola at the time, and the stringing on the Bouzouki he found a bit slack, you know. It was a roundback, a traditional Greek Bouzouki, and I immediately switched the strings and put unison strings on it as well very soon after that, and it sort of changed the character of it a bit, you know.
There was a bit of a debate. I mean, just at the time, I can remember people saying whether or not this Bouzouki carry on was really traditional Irish music, and was it right and was it wrong? And we do. How did you how did you get through that?
You just have to. Yeah. I remember previous to that, it was just an example of the same thing. I went to the Pipers Club with Jim Kane, Sean Kane of the Chieftains, his brother, was a very good accordion player, you know. So himself and one or two other musicians, and we sort of went in and camped in there, and I got out the guitar and we started playing, and it was a nice session, but a person in authority appeared and said, we don't have guitars in here, you know. So
Right.
So Jim jumped to his feet and said, right, one out, all out. So we all marched for the door, and he said, no, come back. So we came back into the session.
Yeah,
But there was the attitude that, you know, bringing in other instruments, you know, they weren't, what would you say, maybe they diluted the tradition. There were people who didn't want anything to change, and that's okay too, you know, but I think that it's a, what would you say, it's a sign that the music is alive,
Yeah.
that it changes. And so, I mean, from then until now, I mean, the sort of, if you like, the character of Irish music has been emerging in a way which wouldn't have happened without the extra instruments and the sort of just the idea of accompaniment and the possibilities there, you know. So it's a positive thing, of course.
Okay, we're coming up now into early 70s, and that brings us to Prosperous. 71 was the Prosperous album. There's a big jump between Emmet Spiceland, 69-ish, Prosperous. So obviously you'd been doing a lot of other things as well as Emmet Spicelanding, and
I was playing session, sort of doing studio work, which was anything and everything from time to time. And then Andy and myself started playing together as a duo, and we ran a club in Slattery's called the Mugs Gig. And Christy Moore had been away for the previous 5 years, and Christy and I grew up together in Newbridge, and we sort of learnt songs and stuff like that. I was playing the guitar before him, so I used to give him guitar lessons at one stage. Taught him everything he knows and
good job.
Anyway, Christy arrived back, and he had been singing in folk clubs like all the year round for 5 years in England, and traveling the length and breadth of the country. And he had made an album over there, which I think was produced by Dónal Lunny, and it was rather odd, you know. It had flute and cello and double bass, and it's you know, I don't remember it very well. I heard it only a little of it, but it wasn't, what would you say? Well, it wasn't very centered in terms of traditional music, you know. But anyway,
Was that Paddy on the Road? Is that
that was that one, yeah. No,
is now the Puncher play? Anybody, or the Branwer play?
is that right?
There's Branwer, a local singer and player, has it in the play based on Christy Blythe. It was done by Terry O'Neill.
Heard about it.
It was Paddy on the Road. That's good.
Anyway, he wanted to make another album, so he sort of assembled it to align us, and it included Andy, myself, and Liam O'Flynn as well. Liam used to go to Prosperous too, so you know, Liam, Andy, and myself knew each other fairly well, and in the you know, the result of making the Prosperous album was Planxty. In fact, we all split up after recording the Prosperous album, which was done in the cellar of a house down in Prosperous, and Bill Leader was the man who recorded stuff. He was Topic Records, and he just used just a pair of mics. They weren't even matched, and it went straight on to a Revox. But I was thrilled coming across this, putting on the headphones and listening to it. I thought it was fantastic.
Again, I don't know if is anybody's going about questions, feel free, or you all just keep gripped. Like the whole Little tree.
How involved was Bill Leader in the sort of in the production end of what he's got together in the cellar?
He gave us good advice. We just because there was a pair of mics, the relative levels of everybody depended on where they were sitting, So Christy was kind of sitting fairly close to the mics. Then put me down the back with the Bouzouki, which was very loud. Put Liam outside the door with the pipes, it was actually, just spread around the studio. But it was all a matter, and you listened to it and got a balance this way, by just arranging us around the place. So that was the most important thing he did, And I think...
Was he used to working with strings and stuff? Because he'd done some stuff with Martin McCarthy, had he, before? Or?
He may have had, yeah. I don't know what he had done before that, but I think he recorded quite a bit of traditional music, for Topic Records. And then he started his own label was Leader Records, I'm not sure what he did. I know he worked with Frank Hart, but that would have been unaccompanied singing, But he was very good. His advice and his take on the whole thing was a mess. I think he did very well, under the circumstances. He made it work. Yeah.
Want to hear it?
Okay, well, let's hear it. Yeah. This is Prosperous.
I think it sounds good on headphones.
There were 3 old gypsies came to our hall door. They came raving boldly, yo, and this one sang high and the other sang low, but the ladies sang the ragga-tagga gypsy, yo. It was upstairs, downstairs the lady went, but on her silver let her know, and it was a cry on her back and her row. She's away with the ragga-tagga gypsy, yo. It was late that night, so the lords came in, inquiring for this lady.
That was Prosperous. Again, we're talking now 71, and what we're playing earlier, like all that stuff from Waltons and so on, was 5 or 6 years earlier. It's a very short period of time. That, I think, is recognisable to us as what we would regard as Irish music today. More or less, that's developed and is coming on, but that's very much in the genre, if you like. But the difference between that and what happened just a few years before was colossal. Again, I can remember the Prosperous album coming out. I was in Newbridge, living in Newbridge at the time. Surprisingly, I'd been following you around. I've been stalking you.
He was waiting for me at that roundabout over in Sheffield.
Well, I mean, it's a sign of my defeat. I've been stalking him all his life, and he didn't even know it. Have to come up and confess here. The brother had a shop in Newbridge, so we're down there, and I can remember when the Prosperous album came out, going into Nace, into the record shop, looking for this Prosperous album. Again, that album was like something just exploded onto the... It was something totally different, something totally new, something totally that we'd never heard before. But what was it? What was it about that Prosperous that, in your mind, about that? Were you aware of it at the time?
No.
Did you? No?
Not really, no. I think it was most important, probably the presence of pipes with the singing and tunes being played as well. That particular track, that was I don't know how that came, but I think it might have been Christy's idea to put the tune after the song, and then it was just a matter of mechanics, making it work then, getting from one into the other. But that grabbed people straight away, with just hearing Tullamore the Lav after the record. That
Yeah.
People weren't familiar with that. I'm unaware of the fact that you were saying that the McPeakes were doing this like 20 years before. It's absolutely true, but they didn't have if you like, I wasn't aware of the McPeakes at that time, and we listened to music.
Yeah.
Maybe, just...
Well, that's something which I'd like to come on to later on. Some stage, just the sort of ace of how Belfast is so isolated, because there's great things going on here. You have to come up more often. But one of the things about the Planxty, it's amazing when you're talking about the Bill Leader and how basic it was. The technology that we have in this room is probably 1,000 times more than what you had to do Prosperous with. But I think also one of the things was you had the ballad boom, as it was called, which was the big thing, the Emmet Spiceland, Johnsons, the Clancys or whatever. And then you had the traditionals, the Pipers Club in Dublin, and maybe even McPeakes were in that sort of bracket.
Yeah.
And I think so maybe Prosperous was almost a fusion of the two. It was the ballady thing, the folk music, and the traditional being able to...
Meeting.
I think that maybe was an aspect of it as well. But anyway, that's only my theory on it all. So that led to Planxty, or the Prosperous album led to the formation of the Planxty group, which, you know, again, I don't want to be using superlatives all the time, but was a colossal phenomenon in terms of Irish music and music. Again, what was happening? How did it happen? What was the motive force? Who?
Christy again. Christy showed up again. He went back to England, I think, and he came back over, and he just met up with Andy and myself, and talked about getting a band together. And then Liam came into the equation, I think, and that was it. And so one day, shortly after that, I left the workshop and never went back. As cool as that. Even though I wanted
Did
to.
they lock it at the door? Is it over? It's over in Dublin.
But that was really how it came about, and just everybody was available, and just seemed like a good idea. So I think we just immediately sort of put a repertoire of songs together, and shortly after that, Donovan was living in Ireland at that time, and he was really popular too. I mean, he was sort of, there was Bob Dylan and there was Donovan for a while, you know.
Donovan was a singer, for those of you who don't know. Very big singer for all you young people.
Yeah, and he did a tour in Ireland, which was quite successful. It was just like 6 gigs around the place in Dublin, Cork, Limerick. I don't know, we didn't play up here. I don't think we did.
Planxty?
Yeah, at that time.
Yeah, there was a Planxty tour up here.
But I'm just wondering, was it?
You support John Martin, perhaps? No.
Supported.
John Martin, perhaps? A friend of mine told me about.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah, it was in what's the
Ulster Halls.
zone up was in the university.
Oh, the McMurdy Hall.
And the other one.
The Mandela Hall is it now. It was the
I really remember that. I remember that gig very well. John Martin was fantastic on it, and in the middle of his set, he took out a huge spliff. Everybody went.
He's that part was repertoire.
So, Planxty. Did somebody sit down and say, let's do all these fantastic arrangements, be absolutely new, or did you just get together and say, let's try this, let's try that? How did that happen?
I think there was some material together already. Andy and myself were playing things like, probably playing the Blacksmith by then, you know. And what other ones of Andy's? Arthur McBride, his Arthur McBride, and then we just got together and rehearsed and distributed the instrumentation. And Andy and myself were kind of a team, so we'd work something together. Maybe very often Andy would work out an accompaniment, well, particularly to his own things. He always would to his own things, and then it'd be the matter of me fitting in with that, and then sort of bringing Christy in on guitar or bar on wherever it was, and Liam would find bits to do and whistle and pipes.
So there was no grand plan? It just
We were making it up as we went along.
making it up as it was long.
Has
Right.
you recorded sitting?
Sorry.
The recorder? Into
Oh,
record.
at the time, yeah, the tape. We would. I'm just trying to remember the first time we recorded stuff. I didn't have a tape. I had a tape recorder at that time. We didn't. A lot of them we wouldn't bother, you know. We just remember. Yeah. See, when you write things down and when you sort of.
But to record the album?
The first album we recorded in a studio called Command Studios in London. I don't think it lasted very long. It was in Piccadilly and it was state of the art. And yeah, it was probably a 16-track studio. And I think we recorded in a day, and it was mixed over the next 2 days, you know, finished out. And yeah, at the time I was learning about studios. I'd been in studios a fair bit by then, and I'd become really interested. But it was just I suppose the culture at the time that Phil Coulter was producing us. But his role was kind of executive, I suppose, in that situation, that he had no input into the music. And we wouldn't have heard of it anyway. Very particular about what I'm sure do. But so there's kind of quality control, you know. And he had an engineer who he used regularly. And so we weren't expected to be involved in mixing of the album, you know.
You weren't expected to get involved?
No.
But were you involved?
Not really, not in the first one.
Right, so...
Only marginally.
Right.
So the second one was much more. By the time we did the second one, we were much more sort of engaged in what was going on. But there was a big difference between the first album and the second album, because the first album we had rehearsed and all the material and played it on stage for a year before we went into the studio. So we were really familiar with all this stuff, and also the very thing of performing it on a stage gave it the right sort of strength, you know. It's funny what I'm a strong believer in that if you're going to record something in the studio, that by far the best thing to do is, if you can, is play it, like gig it first, you know, because you become conscious of any weaknesses in the arrangement. You really hear them in a room full of people. Go, oh, that's a bad idea. Must change that, and so on, you know. Whereas if you do it in the studio, all your lovely reverbs and all that kind of, you know, and the kind of the atmosphere is ideal. But at the same, you can, you know, it's happened before. I'm sure there were one or two things in the Bothy Band's repertoire that we did in the studio and found didn't work properly on stage afterwards, so we would have modified them, you know. But yeah, the second album was, we were still sort of arranging the stuff when we got to the studio. Some of it anyway, you know. And that was the first time I, you know, I suppose did work in a studio as opposed to preparing stuff for a studio and bringing it down to recording. You know.
When you mean you did work, it was still Coulter produced the three, that first Planxty?
First three, yeah.
Albums. So when you say it was the first time you did work in the studio, do you mean you come in and rehearsed, or you had hands on mixing and stuff like that?
No, the first, which was, I suppose, completed the arrangements in the studio and sort of rehearsed it and got it right. And it can be a good way to work, but also it's not ideal in another way, because if it's say a complicated piece, and you're trying to record it, and if you're trying to record it before you're ready, it's sort of the one that is kept is the first one you get right. And so it might be the first time you played it properly, you know. Whereas if you had a chance to play it a half a dozen times properly, it'd be much more fluid and whatever again. And by then as well, we were learning the art of drop-in, you know, which is that, like, you've got the first half of it right, but you could drop in there, you know, so, and pick it up and finish it out. So there was a lot of that too.
Don't know if we've covered that, but in the course yet, have we?
Most of
Yeah.
that.
Straight.
Stas, you know, in those early albums, you know, there's a sense, apart from the confidence that's in the tracks, there's a sense of pushing the bouzouki as an accompaniment instrument, which, like, for the first album particularly, like, struck everybody, you know. And I mean, given what you were saying about the reticence of new instruments, were you conscious of that you'd found a sound and you wanted to explore? But I think with Liam O playing.
Well, it wasn't a mission, you know what I mean? There wasn't a sort of an agenda there, really. It was just this worked, you know. The bouzouki is a good engine, it's a good motor, and that was really what was behind that, you know. And it was, I suppose, the effect of Andy and myself playing together as well. Just, it was a sound, and it had rhythmic power, and I think one of the things the bouzouki had go for it was that it wasn't a guitar, because the guitar was everywhere, and it kind of blanded out music in a way that the bouzouki didn't. Not always. I mean, some guitar accompaniments are like classic and definitive, but the guitar, because of the fact that the chords are recognizable and full, it's like very familiar. It's a very familiar thing to everybody, just unconsciously. So it was hard to make the guitar sound fresh with a traditional tune, whereas the Bouzouki had the advantage of being a more open sound and a different sound, you know.
What did you find that, like, you know that a lot of Irish traditional music accompaniment is often criticised for missing the modes and stuff like that. I mean, at that point, well, because we must play sometime in a second, like, it sounded like he didn't spot on, like, you know. I mean, was that just that year?
It would have been, yeah, and it would have been. I suppose that the sort of evolution of what we thought suited traditional music, from my own heart, what suited traditional music, and that was something we were all taking very seriously in Planxty. I had a moment during the recording of the second album when Liam was playing a tune. I can't remember what the track was, but it was pipes, a moment for the pipes, you know. So I was trying to accompany this, and every time I play a chord, I thought, no, I can't do that. No, it doesn't suit. I would try this. No, I ended up playing a drone. He was playing a drone already in the pipes, but I sort of backed myself into a corner, just mentally thinking about this and thinking, well, maybe it shouldn't have any accompaniment. And I had to sort of go away and think about it for a while before persuading myself, like, no, wait a minute. If I do that, I've done myself out of a job, you know, or even, you know, either you do or you don't. And it was a turning point.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to hear about it nicely? It's amazing listening to that, how it has almost set the standard for so many years there. That's Irish music as we know it today, as opposed to. Anyway, we'll move on here. We're in the Planxty era. We're in the mid-70s, when Planxty 1 sort of took a break. We're calling Planxty 1. What happened in between? You set up Mulligan Records in '76.
Yeah.
What was that about? Just before I ask it, when did you get? It was Phil Coulter who did the production for the first three Planxties. So when did you start getting hands-on and into the production stuff yourself?
It was actually, trying to think. Was it before that? It was before that. Yeah, the first album that I produced was of Brian Byrne.
All right.
Yeah, and I was chancing my arm.
Oh, we have it behind there. Do you want to hear it?
No,
We can hear it.
no. We'll just move on. But anyway, I didn't know what a producer was.
You didn't know?
What a producer did. Yeah, but you go in and you produce an album like a rabbit out of a hat. But I really didn't know what the function of a producer was. And I was probably a little confused about it because our first experience in a studio as Emmet Spiceland was with Bill Somerville Large, who was a great engineer, really talented man. He was a good musician and he had perfect pitch. And he recorded loads of, he recorded show bands and singers or whatever in the only studio in Dublin in the 60s, which was Eamon Andrews Studios. And it was down, just behind the GPO in Dublin there. And very often they had no producer, so he was a producer when they didn't even know it. He'd stop and he'd say, could you tune the guitar there? The second string's a bit flat. It was brilliant. He was great ear. And he did the same for us, So we didn't realize that Bill was actually getting us through the studio process, you know, without too much pain, which is great. So I was hardly even conscious of that. I mean, I probably had a confused idea in my head about what an engineer's function was, you know. But I learned sometime after that.
Well, give us the benefit of your experience. What is a producer?
Yeah. I was just going to ask you this. Anyway, but at the time I thought it was quality control.
Right.
Is everything in tune and in time? And I would say that a producer, well, you know, in my own experience, and it's only it's a specific area with traditional music or acoustic music mostly, that it depends on the artist. It depends on what the artist needs, or if it's a band, how ready they are for the studio, how experienced they are, and how relaxed they are about the whole thing. And so a producer is a facilitator. It's whatever is needed to make the process as transparent as possible is it, you know. But sometimes people go in expecting, you know, and I mean I did myself, you know, you're expecting to hear good sounds and looking for more effects and all this kind of stuff, and you can easily get swamped by all this and lose perspective on what the sort of heart of matter is. And I think that's maybe what a producer can do as well. Just kind of keep the feet on the ground, you know.
Very good.
Ready to crack up.
Oh, and
I'm sorry, I missed a wee bit, so I hope this question wasn't asked, but do you think Phil Coulter was good or bad for Irish music?
I will allow those questions. off.
I can't think of many things that were bad for Irish music. I think that there's room for everything. I don't know, Phil's contribution would be in a different area. I mean, it's ironic, but at the first Emmet Spiceland album was Phil Coulter as well, and Phil had done arrangements for all the songs, which we never heard in advance. In fact, you know, I was kind of surprised. We'd forgotten that there were going to be 16 musicians in the studio playing string parts and flutes and oboes and whatever else with us. That was, you know, it was, again, there was a sense of passivity about it. It was like, this is all the stuff that happens to you when you go into a studio. You know? You get sort of processed in this way. And it wasn't that Phil was out of line. It was just it was the way things were done. Because I think probably Christy experienced the same thing with Paddy on the Road. Somebody might have written out arrangements, you know, and turn up and there they are, even though they've never heard them before. That's your music. So no, I wouldn't be too negative about Phil, but he wasn't that involved in Planxty's music. Like he was not involved at all directly. You know, we did what we wanted to do. We did what we felt we should do. That was okay. And I mean, for the first album, he made it easy for us, which was good. I suppose we mightn't even have noticed that he would have relaxed us in the studio, you know, helped us that way. By the time the second album happened, we were on our feet, and we kind of just did what we thought was best ourselves, you know.
Okay, we're in the mid-70s. Mulligan Records. Why did you think it necessary to set up a record company?
It was actually set up specifically for the first Bothy Band album.
Right.
And I think it was Seamus O'Neill's idea. He was in Gaelin at the time. And we were looking for a record deal. There wasn't very much on offer at the time. And so this seemed like a good idea.
So it wasn't something to do with dissatisfaction with way other record companies were producing stuff, or you wanted to do your own, have more control over the creative process or whatever?
Well, it had all those attractions in that it was like, oh, well, it's our record company then, so you know, we can decide what percentage we give ourselves and things like that. So we gave ourselves what seemed like a good deal, although we never had contracts with Mulligan per se, and the whole thing became very sort of cloudy, you know, after 20 years. However, not going there, we decided to, you know, to do things like to pay for artists studio costs, which maybe was a very bad idea because Mulligan was always strapped for money. And so, I mean, what happens with the conventional record company is that they lend you the money to record the album and they take it back out of your percentage royalty. So, you know, even though they make it possible for you to make an album. Sometimes that's a brilliant thing. Sometimes it wouldn't happen unless that situation was there. You know? But Mulligan we were very idealistic.
Just a little aside, again, one of those, I mean, I have this hobby horse, which you may have noticed, that the Belfast music scene is ignored, and maybe people here don't agree with me, but that almost to make it big in traditional music, you have to go to Belfast no matter how good you are. And yet there's been people here, like I mentioned McPeake, and I'm not saying the McPeakes were doing what the Planxty subsequently did, but I think they were streets ahead of what was happening in the early 60s.
Yeah.
But also McBurney's. I mean, McBurney's here in Belfast, who produced the first Emmet Spiceland, or released the first Emmet Spiceland single, and Mary from the Nose.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
The contribution that McBurney's have made, they must have an archive which is worth billions, because they've recorded everybody from way back. And yet they were up here doing that, largely unknown, unrecognised, and unsung. Again, just us true Belfast ones are always ignored, isn't it terrible? There is that. I think that's a theme when we need to, if we're talking, if people here are talking about getting involved in the music business and the music like, I think we need to actually address that and say, well, what is happening? Why is it that Belfast is out here in a little peninsula on its own almost? Is it politics? Or what is it? Do you have to be in Dublin? I don't know what it's like in Cork. I don't know what the scene is in Cork.
I think there's probably a good scene there as well, but it might the scene in Dublin and in other parts of the country might seem much more, what would you say, organised and coherent from here than they actually are. You know, I mean, I'm not sort of so much in touch with what's happening in Dublin. There always are a few pubs where you know there's going to be some music going on, but
yeah.
That's about the size of it. You know?
But then, in terms of people who want to make a living, either in the production end of things or in the music end of things, well, can you do that in Ireland at the moment? And do you have to be in Dublin in order to do that?
To make a living from it, or to?
Yeah, is the whole thing Dublino-centric? I'm sure I'm saying that.
Well, I'm sure it is. Although there are people working all over the country. I mean, Cork has a scene, Galway has a scene, you know, and that would be just gigs, and to be the recording facilities and things like that there as well, you know. So I think it is possible to make a living, but it's the scene has been changing an awful lot. When the Bothy Band was on the go in the 70s, the disco scene arrived, and everything changed, you know. I remember when the Emmet Spiceland, just a sort of the way the music scene changed in Ireland. When we were on the go, there were 600 show bands in action around the country. 600 bands, the brass sections and backing vocalists. So it was like a heaving industry. They all tearing up and down the country in vans. And a lot of our gigs were as guest spots at dances. And a lot of them were just farcical. We just roll in with 2 guitars and it was whatever was on the stage, and sometimes there was only 1 mic on the stage and 3 of us trying to sing into 1 mic, just interrupting the dance. When are they going to stop?
So the Bothy Band.
That was alive, right? Alive.
Right, we've had a life. What is it? It's Bothy Band.
It's from the later stuff. I think he's recorded this with BBC.
Carry on with the song, which Meenal's going to sing. It's one from the Isle of Barra, the Outer Hebrides. It's a song called An Bhothan Beg Fianna, which is Fionnuala's Bothy.
Urstingo, funny me, Urstingo, follow me, Urstingo, Alishinola, Vahan, and Madisanola, Raka, Hideous, Yellow, Mon, of a Phenomenal, Mon, of a Phenomenal, Veni Fetter Folloman, Veni Fetter Folloman, and you woman back on the Maravane, with Crest and Hiding, Namatic, the Denny, Yellow, Mon, of a Phenomenal, bon of a phenomenon. After she tapped in the shop, after she tapped in the shop, after she tapped in the shop, and we caressed the landing. Not my goodness, did he see it? One bon of a phenomenon, one bon of a phenomenon. Very fat a phenomenon, very fat a phenomenon, and you want back to the matter, and we caressed the landing. Not my goodness, did he see it? One bon of a phenomenon, after she tapped in the shop.
Brilliant. So, where was the Bothy Band? And what was the dynamics behind that? What was how were the arrangements there done? And
Well,
you produced their albums? It's their album, wasn't it?
I did, yeah, yeah. Michal Coverages with me. But the band was actually in existence before I joined them, and it was known as 1691. Yeah, and Paddy Lacken was in it, and Tony McMahon, and all the others, except it was Tommy Peoples at the beginning. And Michal and Serena met up with me and asked me to give it a go. So it was a different kind of thing. It was very different to Planxty. And the sort of, the drive in it was very different. It was like Liam as a Richard Flair in Planxty, that had a very kind of, well, by comparison, a very stately way of playing, you know. He played tunes slower. And when Nat and Tommy played together, they would just go on like a pair of greyhounds. And Paddy as well, so it was like the three of them neck and neck. And not playing as fast as they could, but playing very fast, you know. So there was a kind of a challenge in the air there. And so Neil and Sweeney and myself just had to keep up with them. That was it. That was the sort of bones of it anyway, yeah.
That was there's people now who, again, with people in different views on traditional music and that sort of stuff. And one of the things that people will complain about, and they'll probably blame, if that's not the wrong word to do, the Bothy Band on, is that if you go down to, particularly Tuesday night, down to the likes of the John Shoot, where all the young musicians are down, it's whirring fast, heads up kind of a race. Whereas even if you listen to some of the McPeake stuff, it's all right.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's going there. What do you think? Is it all too fast, or what? Just
well, maybe he's looking for the wrong kind of energy from the tune as well, you know. I mean, there's very much a place for fast music and for exciting music, but maybe that as a criterion in itself is wrong. You know, I mean, there are tunes that are just beautiful when they're played slow, and it's a matter of style or a matter of preference, I suppose. But the Bothy Band did tend to go at it. All right.
So you were, as a producer of that, how did you see, what were the problems that gave, or didn't get problems, or what did you see your role as, or was there?
I think we all felt that we were in competition with discos, because live venues, there were hundreds of live venues around the country, and they, one by one, they started disappearing, or 10 by 10. It was like in a period of a couple of years, I'd say it kind of went down by about 60%, where the publican would sort of bring a disco in for 50 quid, where you'd have to go through the trouble of putting out all the chairs or whatever. It was a lot less complicated to run a disco, and just trouble free. Whereas like Bothy Band, and one of the big problems we had was actually being heard properly in venues, because nobody had peepbox on any instruments, and so we'd have like 6, 7, 8 mics on stage or whatever it was, and you mightn't be able to get the level up before the whole thing started feeding back and all this kind of stuff. So it was a bit of a struggle, to actually create power from the stage.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's that phenomenon, the issue of the discos.
Yeah.
Something which I hadn't thought of. I can remember that, but some of the live music disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was all this. Very good. I suppose we'll move on. Is there any questions? Anybody need to come in on anything on this?
Why do they call the label Mulligan?
I don't know. It's your answer. I think Seamus O'Neill came up with that idea, and maybe consulted a graphic artist who got the logo and the Mulligan thing. I suppose maybe the idea behind it was that it's identified the Irish. I mean, it's a bit hokey pokey, but Mulligan, you know, but it is identified the Irish, and that was probably the thinking behind the film. Seemed like a good idea at the time.
Did you find it hard capturing in stereo the clinical sense or usual pulse or traditional tones and kind of the rooms, the atmosphere? Did you find it hard in overtime?
Sometimes it was. Some people had terrible trouble in studios, you know, sort of relaxing or, you know, getting to where, you know, would become hypercritical of their own playing and then sort of lose all the feeling of performance and you know, the flow would go out of it. And sometimes the takes weren't half as good as, you know, as they're playing in a sort of more relaxed surrounding, you know. So a lot of it was actually getting people to relax and not to sort of concentrate too much on, you know, like going in to listen to it every time you played it, you know. Because that sort of, I think, upsets your relationship with what you're doing in a way that you can do all that afterwards. I mean, I think obviously if you're in the studio and you're playing something, you want to check and see what it sounds like. But once you have that, then concentrate on just doing it as you normally do it.
When you're around for the interview, you'll see that coming through his music. None of this happens without an awareness in the music business, and really to give us that information to help us along with that. You know, FCC is proud to have any hand bands for Dónal. You maybe get some of that back in if you're very obvious.
To be when introduced on call from Federation of the Youth, pull forward actually here and on tour the laptop around the sky up higher space.
Just before all the cells, just to let you know those that have just come in, Callum from Dublin for the FMC, isn't it?
Yeah.
And basically he's just giving a bit of talk about music business with that there. It's part of our information that we give out to different musicians, you know, and it'll form a backdrop actually to what Dónal Lunny's talking about as well. For those of you that aren't working in music, you may not appreciate just like how unique and difficult it is to be a Dónal Lunny in the atmosphere of the music industry, whether that's traditional music or right across the board. So Callum's just going to give a little bit of a talk on first.
First of all, I'll give you an introduction to the organisation. We're a Federation of Music Collectives, as you can see there, and we're a cross-border organisation, and we're funded by the Arts Council. So we're not really associated with any record companies or any one dicker band or anything like that. So we take everything from the artist's point of view, from songwriters and publishers' point of view, totally confidential and free service, and that could be used by anyone. We have collectives operating in Andersonstown, the Andersonstown Traditional Music School, and don't know if you know that already. We have assemblies, Cork, North, the slide all over the place. There's another number associated with Derry as well. And basically our remit is to try and provide free and independent advice to the music sector. Now, first of all, work collectives. A music collective is an organisation in any part of the country that comes together to facilitate that type of music. For example, there could be just a bunch of bands helping each other out to share production costs that they get down costs of producing their own CDs. So say a bunch of you guys together will produce an album at the same time or record an album, and you wanted to try and get the cost down, you can approach on a duplicator and try and get the cost down. That would be an example of a collective. Or for example, Peter Sound School delivering a kind of low cost songwriting workshops. I think that's fair to say, at low cost. Yeah. Okay. Songwriting workshops for people kind of all over the country. So it can be a whole range of things. The second thing we work with is an information service. One of those online, as you can see here. This is the center section is information, and there's 3 fact sheets there. The fact sheets are basically written by music industry professionals for songwriters. For example, how do you copyright a tune, protect yourself? Like really simple tips, like from the most basic form of copyright, which is basically putting your CD into an envelope, writing your own name on it, registering it at the post office and posting it to yourself and not opening it. That's legally binding, it's copyright, so nobody can use your tune from that date. So therefore nobody can ever really offer there's more high level stuff that will go into then their copywriting as well. And there's also for like people who are into kind of dance music or rock or hip hop or anything like that. There's a fact sheet about sampling and also about downloading, basically all areas of the music industry. And there's no one written about how to set up your own independent record label, that you don't necessarily have to go to a major anymore to crack barrels. That you can just set up your own company. You can buy an off-the-shelf company and company's registration up, or simply just going into them and going, want to buy a company, and they're registered for taxation and all that kind of stuff there. So there's all tips about how to set things up and get duplication for cheap and distribute your record. So anything that you can basically take from being having a guitar or a keyboard or anything like that put into your hand, right up to signing your first record there, which is where we really fall out, because then you have a bunch of people who we throw in massive amounts of cash at you, hopefully. In addition to that information service, we also have a one-on-one service where a lot of bands do come in and they'll talk to us and they'll describe what's happening with their band, that they may be trying to get a tour together, they may be trying to do a college circuit, they may be trying to get their band just do a tour around the country. We can put them in touch with different kind of people then that and help them out with that. In fact, Dónal Lunny in the past has been in the office himself, to just ask a few questions. So not me, because he probably have more knowledge than me, in fairness to him. He's been in touch with my boss about a few things before. Obviously can't go into detail, that was his confidential service, as mentioned already. But he's getting help in the past before about that. The third song with the Music Education Directory, which what we've tried to do is we've linked up with organisations in England, Scotland and Wales. And we've listed every educational course, from performance to music technology to business management. And I've listed them. I basically trying to acquire all this information for the North and the South. And we compiled it into one book with Scotland, England and Wales of all these courses. And we posted it to every every second level school in the country to try and get guidance counselors. So when I was in school anyway, back in Ballymun, when I went in to find, say, I want to be a musician, there's here you're going to be a labourer, so get that out of your head started, But this book was never, at their disposal at the time, so it's great that we have these things now. So this is basically available to all students coming in, so they're going into the last year before the children university courses. This book is available to people. It's also available online now. So basically, I'll give you kind of a quick shot of what it was like. Be better on the inside. On the cuts and loudness. I'll go into the loudness towards the low. This is basically where you can search anything on the music industry that you can possibly imagine. Again, we work with similar agencies that work in a community context in Scotland and in Wales. And you can go in and you can search in a category, say for example for venues, and you just go in all areas, north, south, Scotland, Wales, and it will bring up all the venues and it will give you a little bit of information about how big the venue is and that. So therefore, you're talking up a gig away, you can find out this information quite freely. Or any record companies, publishers, right down to grab designers to do a cover of your record for it, or even to band family drivers who are happy to bring people on the road or know people to drink and whatever in their vans and while they're on the road. So it can cover any kind of multitude of things. And there's also a database on your local arts officers if you're trying to get funding to do an album or record something. So this is basically a description of the Federation Music Collective Services. There's a million and one things that can and have gone wrong with record deals, that people think that when you sign a record deal after you put your album together that's success, where it's really only the first step of your career, because there's just been so many artists the money has just been taken from them. That for example, if you sign a deal with a record company for £500,000, you think, right, I'm rich, and well, you do have the money, but it's like getting a bank loan for £500,000, because you don't get any of that cash on basically until you sell £500,000 worth of records for your record company. So basically, you have to pay that back. That they can guarantee they won't lose money on you. So there's also the information that's available on the website. Starting at the top, there was more on music and technology in the 21st century, which is written about recording techniques and how recording prices have come down, that you don't really need to go to a major record company anymore to like have your record released. You can record your own stuff and with your friends have it duplicated for free and distribute it for yourself, so you stay in control of all your money. And there's another patchy on there, for example, with distribution. Now, distribution is basically when you have the records in your hands. You have everything's recorded. You have your nice fancy CDs. Everything's done. You have like 5,000 albums. You go, right, how do I sell them? The norm is to go to a distribution company who will basically put them into the shops for you, which sounds like a really simple thing to do. But for example, HMV and Virgin or Tower, they all have deals signed with major distributors that they won't accept people just coming in off the street going, you sell my CD for you, or me, because they're going to want to know that if they're going to spend money on their staff putting their CD out on the shelf, where's their return going to be? They want guaranteed that they're going to get money back off you. So with distributors, often when you go into them, some younger bands that haven't got a reputation can be, like if you have a CD for sale for, 12, 15 quid for a CD, like that, they'll take 50% of that straight away without you even like selling a CD, irrespective of what you sell. But there's some other independent distributors that you can actually approach them and walk into a shop and go, I want to sell these CDs, and they'll take, okay, I'll take 20% of what I sell, and when I don't sell it, I'm back to you, which seems fairly reasonable enough to me. But all this information again is on our website, and if there are questions that are not answered on the website, do come to us and talk to us. We don't know the answer to every question because like there's a multitude of things out there. We're not lawyers, we're not solicitors, but I can guarantee you that we know a man or woman who can. We know people that can sort out or answer any of your questions for you. So do approach us if you need us. Like the website is there, fmcoriel.com, and all about contact details are down the bottom. You can get us anytime you want, and just leave us a message and we can talk to you. If you do actually want to, if you're down at a stage where you've recorded something, or you're thinking of recording, or you feel that you want to do a tour, you're that far down the line, give it a shout. You can come in and have a chat with us, because there's some bands out there that have recorded CDs and they're not getting anybody to listen to them because they're sending them into record companies and they're being filed under B for being basically that nobody's going to listen to them. So you spend all this money getting CDs and demos together and they're not going anywhere. So we can solicit demos that we have associated companies, there's about 10 record companies and solicitors in Ireland, England and the States that we can send them over to, and they're, they once they get an envelope from FMC, they know to open it and have a listen to them, and they'll give you feedback on your music. Worst case scenario, they're going to tell you your music's absolutely goddamn awful, which, is fine. At least not to just send it to them again. But at least you don't think you're bee's knees and that, you got to improve certain things. Like they might tell you that, you need to be 18 years of age, you need to look like, Robbie Williams or something like that to sell CDs, but because they're not interested in your band, because they want young and good looking people or something like that to dance around the stage and pretend they can sing. Or at least you can that feedback. So they're basically the range of services that FMC offers. Well, we have if you want to ask some questions, ask away, or if there's anything I haven't explained properly or anything else I want to go into, away you go. Okay, great. Yeah. For example, people who come off the music technology course, I think it's a year-long course, is it?
Each course is 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some actually in here that have actually done it, and it's like a 6-week intensive.
Yeah.
And then there's another group goes in, but it runs by the course of the year.
Yeah. Well, say for example you're coming off this course, you might be looking for a placement. It's not necessarily what we'll deal with, but we do know, and we are associated with lots of studios around Ireland, that we can possibly get you some work experience on. So when you do come off the course, at least you can get some work experience to go with that as well, which is also available to you. Then of course there's the as you can see up here, I talked about the music education directly. You can go in there, and if you have got the tours for music technology and learning more about it, again, all the courses that you're going to look for in Ireland are listed in that. So you can go ahead, just look to it directly. There's a search engine here. If you go to this BEIND, if you go to that website, basically you can just search, I want to do music technology in this part of the country or this country, and it'll list all the courses that are available to you, and so you can get contact them from there, as opposed to going and searching individual websites and that. So it's basically just to keep the information concise and together, and that, so it makes it kind of easier for you guys to search out and let you know. Any other question? What's the web address? What's the web address for that? The web address for BTI for the MED?
No, FMC.
FMC is, what do you got to say down? There's it saved on this. The website, I don't have web cards with you, unfortunately. But down here you see the email address is info@fmc-ireland.com. So if you just go to www.fmc-ireland.com, you can get all this information available. And we're really sorry. Yeah. If you are interested, you do go to the site and you spot something that's not there that you really want to know about. Like, send us an email and tell us what crap. We're open to that kind of thing. We need to know that the more we find out about that is not there, the more we can put up there for everybody to kind of share and have available to them. So do these things you want them. All right.
Is everything free?
Everything's free here. Yeah, well, not you. Okay. No, and all the services are free and available, and we don't charge for anything, but we do not. Like any community organisation, we don't have bundles of money to spend on PR. So it's nice when people kind of recommend our services for if somebody has used them, and recommend them on to your friends, and just so people are aware of it, At the moment, it's pity because I met a guy that put kind of band there. We're running a festival called Hard Work Class Heroes, where there's 100 bands going to be playing in Temple Bar over 3 days in 5 venues, and there's loads of A&R coming over, and to watch bands, because it's 100 unsigned bands. So it's a great opportunity for talent spotters to see new talent coming out. And then in the daytime, we're running panel sessions with people from a rep company, a manager, a music lawyer, and a distributor, so they can explain what they do, and then they can take questions from before about how do you get tour, how do you put together any of these kind of things, and you can go one-on-one about about your band with A&R people. They can hand them your CD, they listen to what they say. Well, we think this, that, the other. We think you're crap. We think you're wrong. All right, going to pace in that kind of thing, Wins out. That's going to be happening on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of September at Temple Bar. And even if there's people in the room that haven't heard of or haven't been selected from it, do recommend going down, because you've been meeting an awful lot of people, bands down there. You might meet a band, if you're off in Belfast, you might meet a band from Dublin, another one from Cork, who are just, we've just been playing Dublin, 5 nights a week, or bands are playing Cork 5 nights a week, and are obviously sick to death of playing their hometown, but they don't know how to get out of it. Just go to them and say, look, I'll put a gig in Belfast, you come up and support us, and we'll come down and support you in Cork. And we can get something like that organised with Cork and Dublin and not Galway or Sligo. There's a 5-day tour for you straight away, just by approaching class. So if you don't ask, you don't get it, So with the kind of really putting yourself forward, and if you really do believe that Fest Band are the best musician, a very good musician, don't tell people all about it, because nobody's gonna come to you and ask you, are you very good, Can
I just do a bit of a analysis? How many people would actually be working in bands or around music that are in the audience? It's quite a few. Like what I was saying earlier, stuff that we're doing here with Paul or with Callum is, the idea is that that a lot of the people who are working with music in West Belfast start to become more aware of these sorts of services. Right now, for those of you that are not involved in doing the music, some of it might have gone over your head in terms of some of the information that is there. But those of you that are working with bands, really can't stress this enough, that it is a dog-eat-dog scenario. Anybody who's been working it in the town, who's been trying to put their band on, who's been trying to look at getting gigs and stuff together, will find that cooperation with each other works an awful lot better. Now, we've been particularly this here within an all-Ireland context, You'll find that groups like Nimic tend to have very much six counties or towards England look at things, and the advice isn't so forthcoming. So AFCC has committed through this year to be running programs like this. So I mean, basically, any advice that you do need, if you're putting anything together, whether that does like putting sound packs together for filmmakers or for adverts or for jingles down on the radio, anything like that, where you're putting your own tracks together, right? Come and see us or get on the website. You know, it makes sense to be informed about all these things, right? So, you know, there's maybe
People will rip you off. We will absolutely will rip you off. There's so many bands out there that have been just taken to cleaners. Like, have you all heard of a band called The Frames in Dublin? And Frames were in a record deal with a label, and they signed a 5-album deal. But after 2 albums, they weren't selling so well. So they were going to put out an album with covers and a best-of album to bring them up to 4 albums out of the deal. So therefore, they can't record any other music outside of that. So it's like being told you have to record this kind of music that they just didn't want to do. So to get out of the deal, they had to rename the band The Frames DC just to get out of these things. And the record company weren't accepting of this, so The Frames couldn't record music because they signed a deal that they didn't know what was in it. That basically the band or the record label owns all your music for all that time. There's so many things in it, like, for example, like, you know, when a band goes out there and records, like, I've been in loads, the worst bands you can imagine in the world, trust me, I've been in loads of shite bands, you know, but you always need to know, like, what you're dealing with, because people have got take it to the cleaners. Like, for example, we were talking earlier on about the Verve, and they had that Sound Bittersweet Symphony with the strings in behind it. That was a sample that was owned by that was played by an orchestra, but was actually owned by William Blue Golden, I think his name is. He was the Rolling Stones manager. So the Verve actually made zero money out of that. Every single penny that came out of that record went to that manager because it was deemed in court that the strings on that record were so prominent that it was the rest of the song didn't matter. So he owns every single penny that came out of it. You know, but just by like covering, like, or going to the guy and then we're going to release this record, we can work out a deal where we go 50-50 or something like that. But just by using the service and thinking before you release the record, it's going to really help you out. Like, everybody, it's happened to everybody. The Stone Roses got a band called the Stone Roses in the 90s. They got stung by a record company called Silvertone. The same thing that happened with them, with the Frames. Prince, remember, he had his slave written on the side of his face there for about 10 years because he used to, you know, the same thing happened for him, I think, with Sony or Parlophone.
And even on a local level, like, you know, I mean, it's not just happening up in the stratosphere. Like, Francie McPeake had to take Rod Stewart to court over Will You Go, Lassie Go, right? Which was thought of as being, like, you know, a non-copyright song, but that his father wrote. So it's like, you don't know when these things can happen, you know? It's now becoming a thing where, like, traditional arrangements and stuff are starting to be copyrighted as well. It's not just the songwriter. There's lots and lots of stuff that's developing, right? You need to be more aware. If you're putting any recordings together, if you're putting your music together, get aware and get together. Yes, that's it from us, isn't it? That's it. And we're just hanging all the way for Dónal Lunny everything at the minute, and then we'll stick on some music. All right. Has anybody any questions about any of this at all? Or about anything that we do?
I just want to ask, see you were talking that set up a label, really?
Yeah.
Was in bad of kind of, yes.
Yeah, you set up the label as a cooperative, but as a sole traders, or something like that. I'm not sure what the legal things about there, the legal jargons about that in the Nostrum that you register a company in exactly the same way as you would that you're open, you know, a green grocers. You have to be like registered for tax in the same way. You know, for everything that you sell, if you want to actually make money out of these things, you need to, you know, not just, no, you're selling a product. Your product is your CD, which is the music on the CD. So when you're putting into a shop, that's what you're selling. So you have to have a company behind that. So every time you sell a CD, they need to know that everything's being put to a system. So therefore, you need a barcode for it. And all this information again is on this fact sheet. So you just click and you can read through it. And within that, we'll tell you that you have to register for a company called Chart Tracks, which are based, they're a European agency that are based in London. And what you do, once you register with them and you pay them a fee, they give you a code, you know, like any product with a barcode in it. Like they'll give you that code and then you invent your own, like 6 digits at the end. They give you a 9-digit code. So anytime that's scanned in a shop, you know that, you know, you're whatever, like something like Virgin Records. So every time they sell a CD, they know like how many they sold, where it's been sold from. So you know like where your stuff is going to be sold from. That's how, there's all the basic elements of setting up a record label in there. But once you fulfill that criteria and you're happy that you can do it, or you have some money to do it, you know, just, you know, come to us and iron out the finer details. Or
there's a confidence thing that goes on, especially like in places like West Belfast. You know, like companies don't always have to do well. You know, companies can go bust. You can try, you know, like across the other side of town, the set up companies all the time. Right over here, we don't set up the companies, you know, because they've always set up the companies. They don't always have to be successful. You just have to have the safeguards to make sure you don't lose your house and you don't lose your money when the thing goes down the tubes. And there are ways of doing that as well, but you need a base. So for any of you that are going down that way, like it's on the way to say, get be a base.
Is there some publishing? Yeah, there is advice on publishing in there, and basically it's about what publishing is and how to go about it in the same way as in the same way it sounds to a record label. Like there's publishing is always more important. It's worth more than, and it's more of a grey area than actually just about a record deal. When people opt to get about it, because it's what happens is when you know you sign publishing deal and you don't know what you're signing sometimes. The record company, the publisher, basically owns your music and they can sell it to you. Write a song and they can give it to Westlight and they go, you have not saying it because you sold the rights to your song. For example, there was a deal done that when Oasis signed to Creation Records, they signed for, I think it was 8,000 sterling. That was just the recording, like the album. But who wrote the song with Noel Gallagher? He signed his deal with publishing deals. So the 8,000 went between 5 people, which is what, 1.6 each. He wrote the songs, so he signed a publishing deal just so the song should be sold on for people and recorded for 40 grand. So he got 41,600 and the other one's got 1,600, you know? But publishing is worth a fortune. And like, for example, Michael Jackson now, I think owns all the Beasley publishing now, you know? It's like, it's a really tricky area. It's just everyone owns the writing, the songs. So all that information again is in the fact sheet section of the website. So just go and check that out. Is there a big question before? What do you do about it? You don't have to publish it. You don't absolutely have to publish it. You can own it, but sometimes
it needs to be in a hard copy format. Alright, Fred. Needs to be recorded or written in musical terminology, or there has to be a recording. You can't copyright just ideas in your head, right? But the thing is, if it's in any kind of tangible form, then in some respects you have published that yourself. Publishing deals are to do with assigning that copyright, and people will do them because maybe a publisher will be able to get your song underneath an advert. It's going to like need a load of money, or it's going to get it into, you know, a soundtrack game movie or something like that there. And in order to do that, because they would have those contacts, you know, they will take a percentage of that. But until you assign that, until you enter into that agreement, you know, actually they won't make any money, but then neither will you. So that's the publishing relationship. But obviously, like, if anything that you're doing yourself, once it enters in that, like, any kind of tangible form, written or recorded, then that's a copyrightable piece of work, right? And like now, it's getting to the point now, everybody's aware of copyright now. So it's like, it's a harder fought battle, and people are sort of claiming back off everybody else. Like you and Jerry said, the guard flipped the song, fall out. Like there's the copyright battle, like, you know, but it won't happen if the song's worth nothing. It'll happen like when somebody else gets it and it becomes worth a fortune. We're going to move this on quickly because I know Dónal always got to get here tonight. And can anybody just move forward? Won't meet the band and stuff, so if we get it. Spear from here. That just it is an idea, but just a round of applause, sir. Now, of course, talking to Fergus earlier, the way we're trying to do this, we thought sort of the best way through it was to do it in a sweater.
I give it that.
You prefer hardware recordings?
No, I think that digital has a lot of advantages. I like analog recording as well. I think that the tape does something. There's something that happened with certain mics and the whole process of going on to tape that is
lost.
Yeah, it is. It's only the sort of color is coming back into it now, as the sample rate goes up. You know, there's sort of like that. There are various theories about what actually goes to tape and what a digital recording will pick up. But I think that it doesn't become obvious until the conditions become better, you know. I mean, if you're listening on just at home, you might notice something like a voice on a good mic recorded to analog. It might have a sort of warmer and more real quality than the digital one. It's odd, it's very hard to put your finger on it, but you're talking a matter of small percentages now, and the advantages of being able to actually lift a piece of music from one place and put it in another digitally is huge. That's just that was a quantum leap.
Costs a lot.
It costs a lot less, so things are more accessible. But you know, you get as much bad stuff as good stuff coming up with whatever those advantages are. But that's the way it always is. But I think digital has great advantages to it, you know, because for a start, it's only a fraction of the cost of the equipment itself. I mean, like a 24-track recorder was like hundreds of thousands of pounds. Maybe, I don't know how much they were, but they were really extensive. Now you can get, you know, for just a couple of thousand, you have state-of-the-art, you know, digital recording. But the sample rate is something that I think affects everything. I believe that myself, but it is kind of, you know, there's so much waffle about it as well. You know, people have theories about this and that. You know, it's really the music that counts at the end of the day. But I remember one argument I put up was that 15 inches of 2-inch tape, just physically, just passing over a recording head in a second, 15 IPS, that on that piece of tape there'd be up to 500,000 sort of particles of ferric oxide or whatever, the oxide that's used for the actual recording. So that like 500,000 pieces of information could be stored there in a second. So that's the equivalent of 500,000 samples a second, and it's up to 196 or something like that at the moment. So it's getting there. Where it used to be like, what was it, I don't know. Let's start around, on that I think it's 48. 44.1, yeah? Yeah, so it's broken down, the sound's broken down. I think of it like, like a photograph in a newspaper that's made up of the dots. Yeah, it's that digital music digital recording is the same kind of thing. It's broken up into just little tiny slices, you know. And if you slow it right down, so you can hear. If you're scanning something on a computer or on the early digital machine, when you slow it down, it break up. You hear the angles of the sound, you know. But anyway, quality has gone up, so it is taking over from analog recording, which is by comparison a huge amount of trouble.
What kind of microphones?
I have to confess that I know microphone's okay, but I usually allow engineers to make these choices. And for me, I had only just very general ideas for what to be used, or what was appropriate. And in that way, I suppose, I didn't get into the engineering side as much as I should have, you know. So I sort of went for classic mics, like a Neumann 87, or there were various condenser mics that were, you know, all very like AKGs, which were of great quality. But Generally speaking, Neumanns would be, or 987 would be good for a lot of things.
Wouldn't use them.
No? Oh, these are... These days, the same microphones are still being used, and they're still the best, yeah.
Do you record at home? Do you have a home studio?
I have a Digidesign 002, which is, with an Apple Mac. And that's brilliant for you, because it has four there are 4 mics in and 4 lines in at the same time, so you could do 8-track recording. Having said that, I haven't done any recording on it. I've had it now for a year. But I've done a bit of mixing on it, done a bit of editing and stuff like that with Pro Tools. And I love Pro Tools as a system. It's really good. But,
Sorry. You want to say something, Paul?
No, my question, you should get into the technological thing, which is completely over my head, but I just wanted to ask something about, you mentioned briefly about the artistic differences that might have existed within Planxty and the Bothy Band, but recently on TV, Planxty was described as 3 hippies and a civil servant. And I just want to know how big was the gap, and how was there an artistic difference between yourselves and Mary Lane, for example?
And between Vesey and Lana.
No, between the individual musicians in Planxty.
No, we're all more or less in agreement with what we were doing. I think the second time around, I had notions of ways to expand the music of Planxty. I wanted to bring in a rhythm section, and everybody was kind of, a rhythm section. I was thinking of bass and percussion, but not, I didn't want a bass guitar, I didn't want an upright bass, didn't know what it was to be, and so it never happened. And but people resisted that notion. But I suppose one of the things, it wouldn't be that obvious, but it was definitely the case. Christy had a lot of songs which were contemporary, and I think that was the thing that made them incongruous in the context of Planxty. They didn't seem to suit, didn't fit what Planxty had become, and that was the reason Moving Hearts came together. It was if you like, a different kind of platform for a lot of the songs that Christy wanted to sing.
I actually thought there was certain more styles.
Not exactly that, but I mean, it's if you like, they were out of character in a way. But this is that's a kind of mixed feelings about that argument as well. And I always felt that like a big danger with the band was to become itself, because then it just sort of feeds back on itself and it doesn't go anywhere else, But no, I think they would have been out of character, would have jarred with the rest of the material. And that I think that matters, It matters with an album. It's like people, very often first albums have a wild mixture of songs on them, and so whoever's singing, they love each of the songs and perform each of them really well, but there might be a country and western following a traditional one, and it doesn't take much to really, if you like, to fragment the impact of an album on people.
Do rock companies look for a theme for an album?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. Well, that's. I think that if the album has it's not even a thing. It's just that it should all hang together. That it should rather than be jumping from one area into another. Because then a certain number of people are going to be switched off for that one, and they'll switch on for this, and then switch off again for the next one. Whereas if you like it, and if you like the first one, and it sort of goes on from there, it'll reinforce itself, I suppose.
You probably need a pigeonhole.
Yeah.
No, say it's circle stay.
Yeah.
Yes. Germany.
That used to be a big problem. So there was folk, and there was rock, and there was jazz. I remember in record shops, still doesn't matter that much now, but the Bothy Band sometimes ended up nowhere, Because
I think we're poised to hear a bit of Moving Hearts, and Dónal was the last message. What way? Which is nice and Moving Hearts, and this were the next big development.
Jazz and
Rob was a mixture of both. Most of us would probably remember. Jazzy was it traditional rock.
They'd rock the bomb in one fight to win the World War. No one had ever seen such a terrible sight before. The world begun with phase fight to see where it might lead. The politics of power passed around the sea. This was the time to remember that we never had no day. The machine and then it's sadly rushed to the left. They rose like the saviors of our modern human race. Radiation halos hung upon their face, with the key to the sure cure treatment of our ills. And hot sheet of cobalt, a pocket full of pills, speaking always of the enemy who looks across the sea while they crept in the bliss that can cure disease.
So Moving Hearts. Again, that was another entirely different road you went on Goose. What was the idea behind that? What happened? How did you go with that?
Well, the notion of a rhythm section in Planxty and Christy's desire to sing songs like Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Russian Roulette kind of met because I had intended putting together some kind of a demo. I actually had a go at something and it wasn't what I wanted it to be anyway, so I didn't use it as a demonstration. But Christy approached me and said, well, what are you talking about? What's this idea you have up your sleeve about the rhythm section or whatever, you know? So I also had the idea of pipes and sax trained together. I thought that would be a good sound. And so he said, well, let's do it. And so the first person we contacted was Deccan Sinna. And went on from there. We sort of just assembled over the space of a few months, got hold of everybody else. And it's, you know, in sentiment it was where Christy wanted it to be and where I wanted it to be, I suppose. But in terms of what the rhythm section and the character of the music in that, I found it to be, I wanted to be connected to the music that we were listening to earlier on. And it wasn't. And it wasn't because it was bass and drums playing in the language of rock, which I love, but, you know, rock is rock. Yeah, it's and it's really what I've been trying to find in different ways ever since, but I've never really succeeded in developing properly, is some alternative to bass and drums, but which would be a bass instrument and percussion to perform an equivalent function with traditional music without going that road, you know.
So right, well, when does that? Maybe chase the answer for you.
Well, that was song we put together this morning.
That's the answer.
Susie, you were back close to that.
Well, okay, would you start trying to wind it up? Because I think they'll probably need to rest and you need to. Sorry, John, or somebody that had a question here. We're not, doesn't mean we're finished. I mean, we're sort of thinking about it some of these days.
Do you remember there was a wee band called Relativity, Mulligan and Trina?
Yeah.
How did that go? Because that was totally different again.
Yeah, well, they were based in the States, you know, and I have a feeling Relativity, that was me all three and was it Brian Dunning playing flute. Brian's like a brilliant jazz flute player, probably classical as well, you know. And I think that Relativity, trying to remember what else was in the band. Was Kevin Burton in this band as well?
I don't remember that now.
Oh, I can't be there. I'm not sure, but they both started playing in the States. But then there was another band called Touchstone. Don't know if you came across then. Trina played in a band called Touchstone. And then there was Night Noise. So they were all, by the time I got to Night Noise, it had kind of moved towards what was called New Age music, which is like ambience became the big word. Yeah, it was. I don't know, did Relativity come over here?
I don't remember. I just got it. I got a tape years and years and years ago, and it was so, because I'd heard of Michael and Trina and from Scarlet Bray right through, you know, and then I put this on and it was fuck, because it was rock and roll and jazz and all kinds of stuff, and it was totally different from anything I'd ever heard them doing.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay, it's just one of those bit going back to production and studio.
Most traditional musicians I know keep the idea of kind of laying down track by track against the net. I don't know. Is that the way you generally record, or do you get everyone in one big room and just kind of
Go for as much performance as possible. Is it?
Do you have one track?
If it's going to work, yeah. I mean, unless the room prevents it, you know, which is, it's funny when you've got mics up around each other, and you get spilled from one mic into another. It's almost like there's a pane of glass there where the second mic is. So there's pipes here. There's somebody playing the fiddle there. What you get is the sound arriving at that mic a fraction later. So it's like a reflection. It's like a reflection off a wall. And it can get a horrible boxy sound to it. If you have a spill like this, it can actually spoil it. And the idea to record a bunch of people would be with a stereo pair. But then that's kind of, it's in terms of close miking and production, or, you know, just projection, it's kind of a recessed sound. Sound great in headphones. It's like the Prosperous. But it is possible to sort of mic people fairly closely and to get them away from each other. Now, is there something like, if there are drums, or if there's, say there's pipes, concertina, fiddle, flute, or something like that, the pipes can be a problem because they're, you know, you have to find somewhere to put them that they're not, the reflection and spill doesn't actually spoil it, you know. But the metronome, or like a click, will suit some music, and some people use it all the time. But I think myself, for traditional music, it's not needed. You don't need it unless it is something that you're building up, that you want to build up, that you can't do all at one time. So you want to go back and do more. Well, the most reliable way to stop it from going astray is to have a click. You know, I think, it was the last Moving Hearts album, the tribute to Father O'Donnell, which I did. I did it because I was asked to write a piece of music for Father O'Donnell. He was being honoured in Galway University, and there were a couple of guys over there who asked me, would I write a piece of music and perform it for him, you know? And the band, Moving Hearts, are more or less broken up at this stage, and I said that what I would do is write a piece of music, record it and give it to him, play to him. Would be about the nearest I could get because of the expense of actually getting the band together and rehearsing to do just this, you know. So I had to figure out how to get it recorded. Sorry, this is a kind of a run-up to what we were talking about. But it's funny how it happened. Moving Hearts had some had some instrumental material that we hadn't recorded, and we needed another sort of 10 minutes to make up a vinyl, 40 minutes or 20 minutes aside or whatever it was. So we had 30 minutes of music. So I went to John Cook of Mulligan Records and I said, we're thinking doing an instrumental album. And he says, great, okay. So we needed another 10 minutes. So I ran a click for 10 minutes onto a tape. And then I wrote the air at the beginning, took the click out, put the air down, and then sort of brought the click in after that again. And we just recorded the rest of the music on that. It was kind of written in the studio in a way. But it was really useful to have the click in that situation because it meant, you know, if something didn't work, you could go back, try again, whatever. It's very good. But as for performance, you can't blame people for feeling tied down. You know, if they're used to playing tunes together and you stick a click in and say, well, you do it first and then you do it, it really can rob the whole thing of its life, you know?
Do you think a small dose beat is acceptable then?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, it is when you perform on stage. And it's not to say that everything that happens on stage is as good, you know, is ideal for, you know, recording. It's not. It's like something relatively small, like a bum note or something like that. During a gig, it doesn't matter, it's gone. But if you put on a record, it's like having a little stone in your shoe, you know. And like the fifth time you listen to it, this note jumps out. You think, oh, what's that doing there, you know? I mean, it can spoil a recording, you know, for the musician. But I would say myself that performance is the best. The thing about it is, if you can get it all down as much as possible in one go, great. And if it hangs together and you listen back to it, it hangs together. Whereas, if you're going to start recording more stuff on it, it's funny, if there's a fluctuation in the speed, say it kind of goes from a verse into a chorus and it speeds up a bit for the chorus and then it goes back down for the verse, or even if the rhythm sort of holds back for a couple of seconds, you know, when on the first, say it's rhythm guitars or something like that, when you put stuff on top of it, it's almost like having a little wrinkle in the carpet, and you put another one down, it's a bit bigger, and you end up getting this kind of big, you know, when everything is put in together at the end. It's really hard to control something like that. So clicks get rid of all that for you. If you're layering stuff up, you know. You just have to be very careful with the rhythm. You know, but click is great for some music. Some music is nothing but click.
It's a bit of a euphemism.
Well, so though you know different kind of artists that did work with, like Elvis Costello or the Indigo Girls or someone. Is there anyone else who you'd like to work with?
Loads.
Yeah. What sort of stuff would you listen to yourself now?
I always remember, I don't know, people say, what books do you read? Anyway, let's see. Trying to think of the last album I bought. That's good. We have.
Yeah.
Can't even think of the last album I bought.
But it wouldn't necessarily all be traditional. You listen to.
Not at all. Yeah. I know. I like. I like ethnic music from. I like African music. I love African music. And there's Salif Keita and Yassam Doura, Baba Man, people like that. Great players. I like Indian music. I like Indian food.
They're kind of tired, yeah. All them Asian restaurants.
So, even though I haven't got a huge collection of ethnic music, I really like for different places. I like Cambodian music, it's very nice. But contemporary artists. So I think now I don't have wild tastes in. Yeah, I'm not by any means up to the minute with what's going on. Every now and again I hear something and I like it, you know. But
would you find you'd listen to albums that you produced? Like, would you just go back to Christy Moore albums or anything or put them on?
I generally don't, and I think I should more than I do. I hardly ever listen you know, once it's done, I'd have heard it 50 times or 100 times and wouldn't need to hear it. But it's sometimes very pleasant to hear it about 6 months later. After 6 months, not having heard it for 6 months, a year, and you can catch yourself unawares and not get immediately dragged inside the process and be reminded of all the stuff that you went through recording it. It's like you hear it as a piece of music, and it's nice to hear it that way. It's funny how all it takes. So you sort of, it's hard to remain objective when you're involved in the foundations, the plaster work, the paint work, putting the curtains on, all that. You know.
Okay, I think there's piles more we could talk about here. I'm not going to just finish now, but I think we'll need to start through that a bit of humanity to Dónal and when letting them go.
No, you're probably for a bit.
As long as we're okay, I'm okay. Well,
we're okay.
That's right.
Tom, you don't have to work with John Marshall. Did you not say that
Dónal, they argue with the purists versus, and again, I mean, I agree with you. The world needs purists.
Yeah.
As well as innovators. But there's the argument that, you know, since Irish, at the moment, Irish traditional music is way up there and everyone's listening to it and it's going well. And you have the groups, all the various groups that have been mentioned and others being played and then bought and been listened to all over the world. Is there a danger therefore that we miss or we lose the Donegal style of fiddling or the Sligo style or whatever that everyone is now being, you know, Planxty or they're trying to whatever it is. So how do you balance that, or do you balance it, or it just happens?
It happens. I think it's a process, and it's funny we talked about that talk in a parallel way just yesterday or the day before about, and this is in the band, Andy and whatever, about local accents, speaking accents. It's like you meet people, and all over the country. Teenagers or, you know, young people could be in Kerry or they could be in Galway or they could be whatever. And they have the Dart accent. A Dart accent, you know, sort of talk like that or a little bit like that or worse. And the Galway accent not there, you know, and this is a you know, a new phenomenon really, you know, because it's all media linked as well, you know. In the same way as music, like when the recordings of Paddy Gilloran and Michael Coleman came back from the States, everybody wanted to play this music like that, and that had its own effect. You know, I mean, the regional styles were kind of sidelined at that time, even though they survived right up to, you know, I mean, you still have the Sliabh Luachra and whatever. You've got various pockets of styles around the country, but they are leveling out.
Yeah, but it's have come out and it's, you know, the current sore point, the anti-nuclear thing almost was defeated by that festival which you were involved in. We had the whole situation here around the hunger strikes and the Hate Block album.
Yes.
And even met up to the Columbia Slave at Kingston and Dublin.
Yeah.
So is it important for musicians to have something to say, do you think?
I think it is, yeah. Of course it's a personal choice, but I'm feeling that it's one contribution a musician can make to society. Music makes people feel good, but it's good to, you know, I think it's also a way to draw attention to something as well, without getting too political about it, but, you know, I'd love to have been part of that concert for Bush.
As good as a Vicar Street again.
Was it Bennett?
Oh, it was welcome, George. Welcome,
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's...
Anyway.
So...
But I do think, yeah, I think it is a good thing for musicians to do it. Okay. But there was a time, Moving Hearts happened at a time when people were ready to hear messages and songs about specific things in music. And I think there's been a bit of a backlash. There haven't been many protest songs of any kind, you know, that I saw. They may be coming back around.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember from the, again, not to get too political about the whole situation, but in the 80s, Kerry, when then the level of censorship here in the north was so strong, that suddenly having someone like yourselves beginning to give this voice was had an amazing effect both on the people who were here trying to say something and weren't been able to get saying it, and also I think in legitimizing it there or making it sort of giving it a validity.
Absolutely, yeah.
That this terrorist community, if you like, as we were accused of being and seen as, weren't, if we had said some of the things which were to say, which maybe you were in a position to say musically, when we said it, it wasn't heard because we were immediately suspect.
Yes.
But that's getting very heavy. Do we want to go down this road? Anyway, here. I think it's an important role, and it is. I mean, again, it's in a very long tradition, going right back to your Woody Guthrie's and your Joe Hill and your Pete Seeger and all that. That's right. Things you sped into what we were.
Well, I have another outfit or combination of people together at the moment, which is Roisin Al-Softy, who is she's a shamlo singer from Tullamore, and I think she's a lovely singer, and she's improving as time goes by. Her father's Egyptian. Her mother is a shamlo singer from Coulter, Trasun. And even though she doesn't know any Egyptian music or anything, there's still something odd about it. There's something about the way she sings. Martin O'Connor, Cathal Hayden, and Graham Henderson, who played in Coulter, he played keyboards, and Liam Bradley, who plays the drums with Ronan Keating sometimes.
Right. So about here, that would be the next big.
I don't know. We've done some gigs, but not, I think only one here.
You tell me what's the name?
No, it's Me and Friends for the moment, isn't it? So yeah.
What sort of shit? Is GDID or GA?
You know, you just get different sounds. Better than what you're doing. You know, but it's you can do stuff like that in studios. It's not really practical for gigs.
It's possible. Meanwhile, I think everyone here has enjoyed it and has been able to ask questions. I mean, he needs to get some deep. He probably could answer a few questions on the way out the door or whatever. He's playing tonight up in the in Beachmount Leisure Centre. There's still a few tickets specially left for this group, but you need to go up and get them early.
Along with the other 200.
So like, this is John Boy. He's our local cynic. We bring him in. Kiss I would give me too easy with time. You know the cynic.
Well, I have to say I'm just so delighted you were here, because I would have spoken for 3 minutes and then said any questions. Everyone was sitting around looking at each other, but I hadn't done anything of this, and I didn't know what to expect.